Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar this afternoon. It is 2 o'clock on the West Coast, and thanks to everyone joining from the UK and the East Coast. I know it's late for you guys. This is a little bit later than we normally do our webinars, but this year we are plowing forward with a bunch of webinars at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. So stay tuned for next week's to be announced shortly after this one. So this isn't going to be the kind of webinar where I'm just going to read exactly what's on the slide. It's not pre-prepared like that. I have a general outline of what I want to cover. But I just wanted to let you know that I'm not going to be making any bold claims like this, because that's not true. You probably do know a lot about paid search. It really hasn't changed drastically. But I do want to talk about I'm going to cover 3 trends. It was going to be 5, but I had to cut it down somewhat. I want to keep this in about a 20-minute package, attention spans and all that. Thanks, TikTok. So I'm not going to go over too much in depth, but I want to cover 3 trends that are affecting PPC this year. And they are as follows. We have AI, of course. We have voice and visual and privacy. Those are the 3 main points I wanted to take on today. So I will say, obviously, the first obvious starting point is AI. So let's get into it. So how has AI, what is it doing? How is it affecting PPC? Well, AI-driven ad creation is certainly helping teams, small teams, large teams, all teams of all sizes that I've spoken to. They are able to churn out, and test ads copy and ad creatives a lot more efficiently and quicker these days. So basically, when you go into Google Ads now and you're setting up a search campaign, I'm going to talk about search really specifically in this. You can see it actually fills out a lot of the ad copy for you now. So you used to have to spend hours researching and getting approval and spreadsheets, copy to use. Well, now with the 15 headlines and the 4 descriptions in the text ads, it comes up with that for you. So the really cool thing that, this obviously isn't new, where it gives you suggestions and pre-populates, but this is, have you seen this? This is a brilliant little thing. So it does pre-fill it all for you pretty much most of the time now, especially if you have like a good website with a lot of indexed content, things like that. It scrapes that pretty nicely. What I would say is that they're not perfect, but you can click on that little chat button, and this is very cool. So it will say, I populated blah, blah, blah. These are some images you can use for your image extensions. And then you can engage with it and say, no, these aren't great. I want, so then it uses Gemini to fill in the gaps, if you will. So that's pretty cool. The other thing as well is that, these tools are, I want to mention that, everyone has these. This is available to everyone. This isn't just like a exclusive for agencies or a beta that you have to opt into. Everyone has this. So if you're not using it, your competitors already are. So it's about really getting to learn and get the most out of these tools. You can think you can write better copy than AI. Absolutely, you can. But for 15 different that's just for one ad as well. You can run, 30, 45 and more variations of headlines, and you should be doing that. And then obviously 4 descriptions per ad. So you can really, really, amp those up. So let's talk about AI-driven bidding, because that's a thing that's not new as well, but it's definitely improved. It's improved. It really has. So let's take a look. So if you're using, especially like if you're using a portfolio bidding strategy, there's a lot of cool tools now within the platform. You don't need to pay necessarily for these expensive tools. I mean, we do, but you don't need to. That analyzes it. So look at all these data points. There's so many, and you can actually use these. You can use these in many ways. But actually, if you think about it, too many data points could also cause a little bit of a conundrum, right? So I had a thought. What if AI was allowed to run these campaigns on its own right? Completely. Think about PMAX, but like just completely left alone. What do you think the results would be like? Well, our friends at Optimizer, love those guys. They've done some amazing research on this, and basically, if you don't run the audience signals targeting or the search themes, so if you don't confine it, um, they did, basically analyze the accounts and had a look what they could do. So there's like 10,000 accounts roughly here that they analyzed, and the ones that weren't running audience signal or search theme, actually look at this performance here, right? It's actually outperforming when you do restrict the AI a little bit. Not all the time, obviously it's the click-through rate on audience signals a little lower, but it's in the ballpark. Pretty similar in search theme, but look at that ROAS. You can't sniff at 100% difference. So that's really cool. So basically, my thoughts are on that you should be intentional with your targeting, yes, but you don't need to overdo it, right? You can let AI trust it a little bit, but you have to reel it in if it's starting to, the performance is not in line with that research, because it won't be. I mean, that's just that's just the average. There are outliers. So absolutely, AI is a tool to help you be more efficient, but it's and you can actually do a really good job on its own, but definitely not time to take off the training wheels on it. Okay, so I'm going to move on to voice and visual. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, have you seen these things in everyone's house, right? Whether it's Alexa, Siri. Okay, didn't set anything off, but that's the kind of world we live in right now. So conversational queries are super important to your campaign. IKEA even hit the nail on the head here with Siri, what lamp should I buy? People are doing this. People are asking Siri questions. I'm being really careful not to set off everything in here which uses Siri. But you know what I mean? It really does. So you think about your long-term keyword. Sorry, I am not speaking well tonight. It's live. Long tail keywords actually make up 70% of the traffic online, right? But then again, you don't really have a they're much more specific and can show a lot more intent. What I would say is you really want to make sure that you're including. Obviously you should have the broad short keywords too, but don't use those in favor instead of using the long tail keywords. You really need to use those long tail keywords, because that is how you can actually get that cheaper click, and you can get that higher intent quality lead. And it is, as you see, very visually here, 70% of the traffic. So while we're looking at this, let's look at visual search. What does that mean? Well, it's very obvious what it means. It's visual search. Google Lens is an amazing, if you use the Google app at all, Google Lens is great. And yeah, okay, you can, what flower is that? You can shoot a photo and it will tell you. That's great, but that doesn't really help us, right? This is what's going to help us. E-commerce, right? If you're or even retail, honestly, if you're out there and you see someone walking down the street, it's a little creepy, right? But get their permission before you snap a photo of them. But you'd be able to match colors, you'd be able to match styles by just a photo. And I mean, you can use a celebrity photo, to be fair. Let's be honest, that's what you're probably more likely going to do. But this is great for any kind of retailer, any kind of small business as well. You need to get in on this. And how do you do it? Well, you need high quality images. That seems like obvious thing, but it's not, right? You need to make sure that you're investing in really, really good photography in any product that you're selling online. You also need to make sure the metadata is on point. Give it a little bit. These are machines, and how finicky. It's good, but it's not quite there with graphics and design. AI it's pretty much there, but it's not great. So why not help it out? Use your metadata fields, file names, anywhere you can put metadata, you want to make sure that you're explaining exactly what that photo is, so the algorithm gets it. Okay, I'm getting through this really well. So the last point I wanted to talk about today is privacy. Buzzword, yep, everyone's talking about privacy, right? Cookies going away, but they're not, but they are. They will go away. But it also highlights a really like a best practice kind of thing. Anyway, we shouldn't be relying on third-party cookies. You just shouldn't be. It's not, they're not great. Anyone who tells you is not thinking, right? So I'm going to go over what this means, right? So nearly 2/3 of the country right now, and if you're in Europe, forget it, right? And that's on my next slide I'm going to talk about. But look at all these states that have some kind of privacy laws that you absolutely need to follow, or have got them coming in soon. Maybe they're not yet imposing the fines, but they will be, and they're huge. So you want to make sure that you know your rights, you know what you're doing, and just be a good advertiser here. So let's actually really let's roll this in. Let's look at this, right? So yeah, if you're doing business in Europe, forget it. You get it. So what it means for us, let's get to that point. It's a loss of tracking. That is what since iOS, I can't remember the number, it was a while back, right? 12, 13, 14, whenever they brought in all the do not track prompts that come up, we lost a bunch of tracking. And it's all good because it's in the interest of privacy, but we lose tracking. So how do we cope with that? Conversion modeling. That's what we need to be doing. So if has anyone heard of conversion modeling before? If you haven't, pay attention. So it's a little complicated, but I'm going to explain it in a really, really simple way. So we know that you cannot account for every single click now. We've given up on that, right? It's not going to happen. People, the users are going to be more savvy. They're going to turn off their cookies. They're going to disallow cookies when given the very explicit option of, do you want us to track you? Most people will say no. So, and also it does depend on the intent of that person. If they're super into your product and they love you, and they trust you, they will go through. So in this example, 50% of the people clicked yes, track me. I don't mind. Yes, I want. And there's ways of wording that, but you have to be very clear. Like, this is going to be a cookie and it's going to live on your browser X amount of time, and we will be tracking you. But it's, you can say why, but most people are going to be yes or no. Now, if they're yes, statistically, they're going to convert more because they're already bought in, right? They trust you, whatever. So, but there is this percentage of untrackables that's been out in the industry for a while. Like, we don't know, like, what is that number? Well, I'm going to tell you now, it's not as much as the people who are consenting, because it's just not the way it is. In terms of lost conversions, it might be 50-50 in this example, but look at the conversion discrepancy there, right? You have a 10% conversion rate for those who consented versus like a 2% or less than 2%, depending on the way you look at it, right? There's different calculations, and that's something we often talk about with our clients. So I won't go into it now, but you're sitting somewhere around 2%. So you factor that in, right? And you calculate that in. So we have this reported conversions, but we also have our modeled conversions too. So that's how you get around that. This is specifically a Google example. And the numbers check out. I like those numbers. So that's that piece of the puzzle. The other thing to mention is zero and first party data. And you've probably heard this a lot. But what I mean by this very clearly is that the zero party data is the data that you collect from the user, right? So through surveys, like, you get those email surveys, how did we do, things like that. Hey, we're launching a new product, like, what would you be interested in, things like that. This is the best form of data you can collect because they're explicitly consenting to giving you that information. It's accurate as long as they're telling the truth, which why would they lie? They wouldn't, right? Sure. And there's no data risk involved because they've opted in and they're very clearly opted in. No one's going to feel icky about that. this can be, this is used across all industries. I think it's vital to start doing this and actually seeking that feedback digitally from people, and then tracing that back to, I mean, you can't necessarily always identify the person unless they want to opt into that, but just having that information through surveys is just perfect. Is what you need to do. Most importantly, use a CRM. You would be amazed how many people I speak to each week that just are not using a CRM, or not using a CRM properly to its full extent. So I'm going to spend the last 5 minutes of this just going into this. So basically a CRM, I'll step back a little bit. So CRM, I'm going to use HubSpot as an example because we are a HubSpot partner and we love HubSpot. We use HubSpot, and they're just great. And funny story, their traffic has gone down, but their profits have gone up. So that's a whole other thing I want to talk about another time. Maybe next week. But they're doing great things, and they actually have a even going back to surveys, they have a whole surveys module in one of their hubs, where we actually have a automated quarterly survey that goes out to all our clients, so we can get that feedback and get a net promoter score, and then we use that feedback to improve, and there's bonuses attached and things like that. So it's really cool. But it could be applied to a lot of different various things. Then you get all that zero-party data. You can improve your products, improve your service, which therefore improves your conversion rate. It's just all full cycle. But CRM, you're collecting first-party data too. So it's like the customer details, and you have to keep that secure. With the data privacy laws and everything like that, most CRMs out of the box, if you check the box, are GDPR, CCPA, and other states, following suit compliant. Which means they have access to remove their data if you part ways, etc. You'll be able to easily remove data, give them the data that you have on them, all that kind of good stuff that you need to do. And it needs to be reliable too, and keep it clean, because the next thing I'm going to show you is what you can do here. This is an example of a lead generation ad in Google. Well, that lead generation form has got to go somewhere, right? You've got to get that information. But the nice thing about HubSpot is the fact that it's all really integrated is that you can actually put it into a workflow, right? So they've filled out the contact form, and then you send them an email, right? So it's all, the workflow is all built in there, but you can also do really cool things like add lead scoring based upon things that are in the form. A lot of really cool things. So you're able to, with the CRM, collect and use the data very efficiently. Conversion tracking, that is so important, because you need that feedback loop to tell the ad platform if that's a good lead or a bad lead, or like if that's the kind of lead you want. So with HubSpot, and you could do this with Salesforce too and other CRMs, I'm just using HubSpot as an example. You can track that lead, and you can create leads, different types of leads, and move them through as they move through their funnel as your sales cycle, right? So when they move from a marketing qualified lead into an opportunity, and then if it closes, or if it closes and you lose it, you can also do things with it. So that integrated conversion tracking is super important, as it's very, leads are very, especially in a service-based business or very complicated, long sales process, you kind of want to take a snapshot of where people are at. So that is all LinkedIn. You know what I mean? It's all linked. So I've got 1 minute left on what I planned for. So I'm going to give you the TLDR version of everything. Okay. So what we're trying to do is we are, trying to harness AI. Just use what's available to you, right? And make sure that you are using that time you save. It's not just like okay, I can do what I did in an hour in 5 minutes. Yeah, in theory, yeah, but use that extra time you gained to improve the quality of what you're doing. That's kind of what we're trying to do at Two Trees, is that we're not trying to use it as a shortcut. We're like, look, we can get the bare bones on, but now let's spend that time improving and making 3x 3x changes, right? 3x iterations of the same copy to try and get that test. It just means that everyone can just do a lot more with a lot less time. Optimize your search for conversations because of as I was telling you about, a lot of voice search. I know we've been talking about it for years, but it's just becoming the way people do things, especially with ChatGPT as so it's a little link here with the AI piece, right? You can talk to ChatGPT as you would a person, and it's going to give you the results in a much, I would argue, a lot better way right now than Google or any search engine is presenting it, because it actually can then become an agent and follow up and be be kind of like an agent for you, right? So yeah, I want to search this thing now. Go ahead and book this for me, or like buy this for me, or like at least set it up. Fred over at Optimize is doing a really fantastic thing this week I wanted to mention, where he's actually using an agent to. You should check him out. I'm not gonna speak for it, but go check out Fred on LinkedIn, see what he's doing there. Optimize images so they can be searched, right? Feels like this is Web 2.0 kind of stuff, right? It's old, but no, it's super important that you have those metadata pieces filled out, because how is the machine going to learn? I mean, it will do it, but why not just give it the answer? Again, be optimized. The big thing is, when we talk about privacy, is you have to get the user's permission for everything. You have to get the user to explicitly opt in. Even if you don't really have to, you should just do it now. Some states you can get away with it, and you can just automatically say, okay, they don't have to check the box to opt in. It's already pre-checked. Just don't pre-check it. You're going to find the quality is better if you just get that person to take the extra step. They're probably qualified. Same with everything, right? If they're going to buy from you, they're going to do the work to do it. So don't make it too easy for people. And finally, store it in a secure CRM. Use it. I'm not going to get political, but maybe somewhere that has data protection laws in place at a country that does that and respects data. Maybe use a CRM that stores the data in the US or Europe, or somewhere that has a framework where the data is going to be protected. And then use it. Use that data, that clean, secure data, to segment and target efficiently. I think that is how you can get the most out of PPC in 2025. So that's all I have today. You can follow me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to us at twotreesppc.com. And yeah, thank you for joining me for this